Welcome all. Welcome to the third NAIRR Pilot Researcher Showcase, Empowering AI Research and Innovation, organized by the NAIRR Pilot User Experience Working Group. Thanks all for joining. I am Nitin Sukija, along with Lana Romanella, will be the host for today's showcase. So without further ado, let me introduce our panelists. I hope you can see the slide. So today's panelists are Dr. Andrew White, the first panelist, who's going to talk about the FutureHouse, scaling laws for scientific agents. Dr. Andrew White is a co-founder and head of science at FutureHouse, a San Francisco AIxBio nonprofit research organization and tenured professor of chemical engineering at University of Rochester. Andrew White is a researcher with over 50 peer-reviewed publications and books across the domains of large language models and chemistry, experimental AI, statistical mechanics, chemical engineering, and he has won Junior Investigator Award from National Science Foundation and National Institute of Health, along with professional and teaching awards for excellence as chemical engineer. Andrew is an active member of scientific community as a peer reviewer for over 30 journals, multiple national and private grant awarding institutions, and serves on the Chemical Sciences Roundtable at the National Academy of Science. Andrew is also a science communicator with large followings on X and LinkedIn, and has been interviewed in multiple publications such as the New York Times, Bloomberg, Nature, Financial Times, and Science. Andrew serves on multiple scientific advisory boards across biotech. He has contributed to the ongoing debate around safety of AI as an open AI red teamer, speaking at multiple policy summits and visiting the White House to advise multiple agencies. Thank you, Dr. White, for joining us. We are very obliged by your appearance. Next, our panelist is Dr. Xiao. He's going to talk about his project titled Feasibility Study of Generative AI in Construction Safety. Dr. Xiao is an assistant professor of construction management from Department of Civil, Environmental, and Geospatial Engineering, Michigan Technology University. He was a research assistant professor in the Hong Kong Polytechnic University from 2022 to 2023. Dr. Xiao's recent interests includes construction automation, AI application construction, and construction robotics. His research has been supported by National Science Foundation, Federal Railroad Administration, and Hong Kong Innovation Technology Commission. He has published 29 journal articles, 20 of them as first corresponding author from top-tier journals in the construction engineering field, such as Automation and Construction, ASC, Journal of Computing, in Civil Engineering, and Advanced Engineering Informatics. He's a recipient of 2023 Best Paper Award from the ASCE, Journal of Construction Engineering and Management, 2023 Outstanding Paper Award from the International Symposium Advancement of Construction Management and Real Estate, and 22 Outstanding Review recognition from ACSC, Journal of Computing in Civil Engineering, and the third place award in the inaugural Best Data competition of ASCE DSA. Lastly, again, thank you, Dr. Xiao, for joining us. And lastly, we have our last panelist, Dr. Shelley Knuth, who's going to talk about her project, Access Support Project. Dr. Shelley Knuth is an assistant vice chancellor for research computing at the University of Colorado Boulder. Her team operates a supercomputer, research data storage, a secure research enclave, a content cluster, infrastructure support for courses, and a friction-free network for large data transfers. She's also one of the two executive directors of the Center for Research Data and Digital Scholarship, and the chairs of the Rocky Mountain Advanced Computing Consortium, which collaborates throughout the Rocky Mountain region on cyber infrastructure projects. Shelley is the lead PI for NSF-funded Access Support Project and serves as a PI on several NSF-funded projects as well. Additionally, she leads the User Experience Working Group for the NAIRR Pilot Project and is a member of RMAC Women HPC chapter and holds a faculty appointment at CU. She earned her PhD in Atmospheric and Ocean Sciences in 2014. With that, Dr. Knuth, thanks for joining us. I think we all are in the thing as a co-host. And with that, I think I'll ask Dr. Knuth to share her screen and start from there.
Thanks, Nitin. Let's see here. Hang on. Okay. Are you seeing my screen? Awesome. Okay. Thank you. as it said, I'm Shelley Knuth. I am the Director of Research Computing at the University of Colorado Boulder and part of the NAIRR User Experience Working Group and one of the Access PIs. And I'm just going to give you a quick overview of NAIRR and then let our true expert panelists share their research. So NAIRR is the National Artificial Research, or excuse me, National Artificial Intelligence Research Resource Pilot. So what is that? It connects U.S. researchers and educators to resources that are going to help support them in their work with AI, whether that's research or education. And this originally came forward, the pilot came forward from a task force that was commissioned during Trump's first presidency. It then came forward from an executive order from President Biden. And then more recently, President Trump has included it in one of his recent fact sheets. So it's got a decent amount of bipartisan support as we move through various administrations. And really, the pilot's about federal agencies collaborating with government-supported and non-government supported partners, so industry partners, to implement the pilot as a preparatory step for a full NAIRR implementation. We are still currently in the pilot. Basically, we want to know what we can do to help support AI so that, and then through the pilot, we'll learn what that means in a full NAIRR implementation. And through the pilot, we're helping to bridge that gap for anybody, including researchers who are lacking access to AI resources that are needed to conduct their research. We are basically aiming to ensure that these tools are equitably accessible no matter what region you're in or what part of the country, what institution, what have you. What's available? If you go to our NAIRR pilot website, you'll see some of these things, but basically you will have access to some of the premier AI resources in the country, whether that's computational infrastructure, storage, tools, models, software, data sets, and training and educational resources. And between the federally funded and industry partnerships, there's a wide variety of resources to choose from. And who is it for? It's for researchers and educators who may already be using AI in the research or in the classroom, but they might not yet, but they really want to do so and they want to get involved. And it's really about all skill levels. And we, the pilot started out with looking for projects that could get us going, and we are definitely transitioning more and more toward making sure that we have platforms available for people with perhaps a more beginner level skill set and continue to look forward for that. But we want to encourage everybody, no matter what your skill set is surrounding AI, to join us. On that note, how do you get involved? If you have a project in mind, we have a couple of open calls right now. The NAIRR pilot resources requests for advancing AI research, that's on the website, and then also the classroom educator resources call. And the website is the nairrpilot.org site, and please ignore the link below. That one is for an old thing that I forgot to remove from the slide. So, you can get involved by applying for a project. You can get involved by joining these trainings and any of our other events as well. I want to address the intimidation factor because one thing that I think comes up a lot in any of our fields, especially for folks who are supporting people in computational workflows, whatever that looks like, is this idea of intimidation and that this is not meant for me. I don't have the skill set for it. I don't know enough. Everybody else knows more than me. And the first thing I just want to say is that's pretty common. I feel that way half the time myself. And I think that what I just want to say here is to let you know that you may feel that way, but that doesn't mean that NAIRR isn't for you. And if you have questions, we are here to help you. We have a long list of support people who are waiting to help get you over whatever barrier you need to get over to join NAIRR to work on your projects. You can submit a ticket if you go to the webpage, that we lined out earlier. There's a button for submitting ticket. I think you have to get to it through the help menu, and somebody will connect with you. We have office hours that you're welcome to attend at any time. Those are on the website as well. And we're putting forward trainings, workshops, consults, events like this one, this showcase here. We've had other showcases as well. And there's a lot of opportunities for you to learn more and to get involved. And we're always really interested in getting feedback as well, because that helps tailor what services we're providing. And, again, just to say that if you're worried you don't fit in here, you do. We're all beginners at this point. This is a pilot, and it's a pilot for a reason. We have had so much interest in our events from the community, and much of that is from people who are looking to learn more because they want to engage in this area that is new for them. So if it's new for you, you're welcome here. We're going to have some during session surveys that will help us to learn more about what you're looking for, and again, what we can provide to the community. And then I just want to make sure that you knew about the events on the NAIRR webpage. And then if you navigate to the events page, you'll be able to see that there are a lot of upcoming things between us and our partners that are providing more information. And then finally, these showcases, some of the trainings, some other events as well are put on by the User Experience Working Group. And Nitin Sukija who's leading this effort, and Lana Romanella as well. They're part of that, as well as myself and Marisa Brazil. And really what we're trying to get at for the pilot is, what is the user experience like? What can we do as we move toward an implementation phase to make sure that everybody has the support they need and the information they need? And, whether or not you have a research project, it is also about educating the general community around AI. And so you'll see things like that. So even if you don't have a project, we're really interested to hear from you, because we want to know what it is that you want to know. And so we talked about some of the things that we're providing already. But there's a lot more opportunity out there. So just let us know what you're looking for. And I want to acknowledge too that there's a big joint effort around support within the NAIRR pilot. There are the people who are providing the resources, those computational resources and whatnot that we talked about earlier. A lot of those groups, most of those groups have their own support teams as well, who are helping with these efforts and who in many ways are leading the on the ground efforts to connect to make sure that you all have the information that you need to work on their particular resource. There's other NAIRR pilot working groups as well that help with different aspects of the pilot that we work on. And we're all working together to make sure that this is a success. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Dr. Knuth. So as Shelley mentioned, we will be conducting some polls. So the next step, which we as a group are planning, is trying to conduct NAIRR, AI resource provider showcases like we did for researchers. So it's time for showcase the research providers, and it's basically trying to do the workshops. They will be conducting 2-hour workshops starting June. And we have some questions from the audience to collect data and to make sure, we have a really good, user-oriented workshops. So the first question, if you see, should be launched right now on the poll. Please try to fill in if you can. Answer the question. Let's see which one basically wins. I'll give one more. Okay, we see popping up. So the question is, which of the following is the most important factor for your research and or education? And the answer is almost changing. Okay, we have a winner. So the winner is generating general AI model understanding. So that's the result. I'm gonna stop sharing now, and then close the poll, and I'll call Dr. Xiao to be our next panelist to basically share his screen and start his presentation. Thank you, Dr. Xiao, for being here.
Okay, thank you. So Uh, okay, I'm sharing my screen. Can you see my screen right now?
Yes,
Okay,
thank you.
perfect. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So thanks again for this great opportunity, and I'm very happy to meet all the audience here. So my name is Xiao. I'm an assistant professor from Michigan Tech University. Today, the topic I'm sharing is feasibility study of generative AI in construction safety. So actually, I want to share some of our research progress, but more important, I want to hear some feedbacks from the community. So first of all, I want to give some background information because I'm actually working in construction industry actually. So I'm not from the computing or computer science community. So I got all my degrees in civil engineering. But I'm not sure if you guys know construction industry actually works for planning, designing buildings, maintaining all structure and infrastructure. So everything like your house, the roads, tunnels, bridges, all belongs to, I mean, like very closely related to construction industry. And actually, we contribute a lot to the global GDP. So usually we contribute around 4% to US GDP and 10% in global GDP. Uh, However, safety is kind of the most important challenge in our industry. So probably construction industry is the most dangerous industry sector in the world. So usually we got 1,000 workers killed averagely every year, like in US, and a lot of injuries. So those are very sad stories. So we believe in our community, we believe the main reason is the low digitalization level. So they have done a lot of survey. So unfortunately, our industry has the lowest digitalization level among all industry sectors. That's a reason. So a bunch of people in our industry, especially in recent 20 years, we are working on using some technology like AI, to IoT technologies to improve the construction safety. So just want to share some, research background. How do we use AI in construction safety? Because we are actually not the AI experts, right? So we are working in construction. We just borrow the knowledge from the AI community. So some efforts we have tried. So first of all, we have tried to use some classification algorithms for to do by using it, we can do some simple safety applications. For example, a worker if they wear the hard hat, so we can do that at the very beginning, maybe like 10 or 20 years ago. And then some of our colleagues they use object detection, so they got more detailed information, so they know if the worker wears a vest, hard hat, and other PPE equipment. So recently, some of researchers they started to use image captioning. So they want to try to understand the image or videos. They try to generate one or two sentences to describe what is happening. So if something, if some hazard are detected, they try to report to the project manager or the worker directly. So recently, some people they want to get more information. They use some technology called dense captioning, so you get more and more detailed information from image and videos. Actually, I some of my research is working on this direction. We are trying to use computer vision AI to do the construction safety control. So, just want to share some of our previous efforts. So basically, my group is working on two directions. Firstly, data set. We kind of realized the importance of data sets. So we know in computer science they have very huge data set. Like I remember, they have the Google Open Image data set, like 9 million people, 9 million images. They can train the algorithms, but this kind of data sets we don't have this kind of data in our field. That becomes a huge problem because when our researchers want to develop some application, they have to create their own data set. They spend 1 or 2 years. They only collect like hundred and thousand image data. So it's not enough. And when another researcher they want to do the same topic, they need to repeat this effort again. So during my PhD study, so I tried to develop an image dataset called Alberta Construction Image Dataset. Actually, you can find this dataset from the web page. So we published online from 2019, so already 6 years so far. The purpose is we want all researchers in the construction domain, they can use our dataset to save their efforts. So now it has 10,000 construction images. It supports three types of tasks: object detection, instant segmentation, and image caption. We have researchers from different countries working together to run this data set, make sure like to contribute to our community. So we also had done, okay, sorry, I missed this slide. So until now, there are over 500 different research groups in the construction domain. They are using our data set. So kind of we make some impacts in our domain, but we are trying to expand our impacts and try to make contact to the broader computing community. Another direction is we are trying to develop some construction safety applications. This is one study we have done. So basically, we have construction images. We use dense caption to capture whatever we can find in this image. So we have a lot of information. And in construction, luckily, we have very clear safety regulations. So different countries, they have different regulations. For example, in the US, we use OSHA standard. So we try to compare what we found in the image and what's the regulation. So we are trying to detect if any of the regulation have been avoided. So these are some results. So we put some dense caption here, get as much of information here, and compare with the OSHA standard to see if there's any unsafe behaviors and what rule did it avoid it. So, but this kind of method kind of has some bottlenecks. So the first challenge is generability and data. So model trained for one challenge is difficult to be applied to another. For example, if this model trained for the struck by accident, it cannot be used for the executions. Another thing is the speed. So because we try to apply various vision and long-range models, which makes the entire solution very slow. So basically, it can only be run in academia. There's a very slow chances to be applied in the real construction sites. That's the reason we try to explore the possibility of generative AI. That's the reason I saw the opportunity from there, and then I applied for the resources. So why do we think generative AI can help? So basically, we are doing processing some languages, like compare with the image captions and also the regulation. So we think generative AI can understand the fragmented information, and we don't need to train it. It means it's good generatability, and it also has good reasoning ability. Back to our project. So the project name is the feasibility of generative AI in construction sites. Actually, we are focusing on testing it for the electrocutions. So as you can see here, the OSHA has recognized 4 major hazards. One of them is electrocution. So in 2016, there were 82 construction workers died because of these hazards. So we are thinking, can we help workers to understand the potential risks and proper react? So this is kind of project we are working on. So we think it's a potential solution. So we try to use the IoT solution with generative AI. So we want to have edge computing devices attached on the worker's hard hat or the vest, and then it takes a video stream. So we want to use generative AI first to understand the images, get some long-range description. At the same time, we have safety regulation. So we expect generative AI can understand, compare those two, and indicate if there are any hazards or if there's any hazard, and give us the suggestions. So we can put the long-range alert to workers. So this part, we kind of divide it into three parts. The first part is do the image caption. So we already done a lot of work. So we want to use the NAIRR resources to do the test too. So basically, we want to test the feasibility of generative AI for the safety reasoning. So if we have the long-range description and safety regulation, can generative AI give us the right feedback? So this is all because about my project because I just got it like in February, so we didn't do any work on it. So, but this is how we think about our project. So briefly talk about the contribution of this project. So we kind of try to use generative AI in construction safety management. So not too many people are doing so. That's the reason we want to get some experimental results and contribute back to our community. So this project basically combines both computer vision and long-range processing. So we hope to, by doing so, we tested in the construction scenarios. We want to provide insights in broader engineering community. So there's sometimes we have the feeling like some traditional engineering domain, like construction, civil engineering, we are a little bit behind the AI community. So we request like around $11,000 computing resources from Azure. So basically, we haven't started to spend yet. What we are thinking to spend it, we will use Azure AI and image processing models. Also, we use database. Also, Azure has a very great function called the cognitive search, basically index the database very well. So we also want to develop a web application and then do the security. So those are something we are thinking. So challenges with respect to AI and compute. So one thing we really care about is the performance because we are working on safety, right? We want it to be as safe as possible. So we want the accuracy like 100%. Right? So that's a very perfect scenario. But if the product is like a 90% accuracy, it cannot be used in construction site. Another thing we are worried about is when we do the data matching, how can we, perfect match with the description with the OSHA safety regulations? And the third thing we are thinking about, if we can develop this thing, how to ensure the security. So finally, I want to discuss like how to engage with NAIRR community. Personally, I'm very excited about this opportunity to be engaged in the community. But I feel like in our construction community, not too many people heard about this great opportunity. So I'm wondering to better engage with NAIRR. So maybe how can we get more research resources? I know we have workshops, like training resources. Maybe in the future, we expect some maybe short training courses. For my cases, I have my data set and some applications. How can we contribute to our data and application to the community and attract more experts from AI to help with us? And then we also hope to get feedback from the community. So personally, I will be very excited and willing to participate in all the virtual sessions and PI meetings and all the discussions as much as possible. Yeah, so that's basically for my presentation. So I'm wondering if there's any questions.
Please, if you have any questions, please put in the Q&A window, please, not in the chat box. Thank you. I think we have only one question which we're trying to answer right now, irrespective of your project, Dr. Xiao. So if anyone has anything else from Dr. Xiao, please put in Q&A. No, hearing none. I think, thank you, Dr. Zhao. I think we are good for you. Uh, so there's gonna be one more poll now opening up soon, which is the next question. So here you go. So next question is again about AI resource workshop series, which is going to be organized by NAIRR Pilot User Group, Experience Group. So the question is, what knowledge do you want to gain from resource providers workshop to be offered starting June 2025? Okay. Give you 20 more seconds. Okay, it's still increasing. All right, going one, going two, and I'm gonna stop the poll now. So that's the answers from 68% of participants. So we have a winner as deployment implementation, which is the most important knowledge, which most of the users wants to gain from resource providers workshop, which we're going to start offering in June 2025. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Zhao. Thank you all for this.
Thank you.
Now I'm going to call Dr. White to share his screen and continue his presentation.
Oh,
Thank you,
great.
Dr.
Yeah. Sorry, I thought I was last. Happy to. Let me get my screen back up. Okay. Thanks for having me on. I'm going to share the outcome of our NAIRR pilot award. We used resources from the NVIDIA DGX cloud and worked on a project on scaling laws for scientific agents. Okay, so I have just one slide about FutureHouse. So FutureHouse is a research nonprofit, primarily backed by Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google. We're based in San Francisco. We have about 20 employees, and we have a wet laboratory, and we try to couple AI models with biology experiments. So I want to just sort of set the stage to talk a little bit about how do you evaluate scientific models. So we work on language models, large language models that can use tools. And so one of the first things we need to do is to see if frontier models can already solve the problems we care about. So we wrote this paper around the same time as our application for the NAIRR Pilot Award. And basically, if you look at the benchmarks that are out there for biology questions specifically, this is an example of an MMLU Pro question that is in the biology category. As of 2017, how many of the world's one-year-old children have been vaccinated against some disease? It's kind of just a random trivia question. I'm actually surprised that the models can get this. It's such a strange fact to know exactly in 2017 how many one-year-olds were vaccinated. Another example of a question from MLMU, what is the place named in the title of the 1979 live album by rock legend Cheap Trick? And I think this is a very interesting one, is find the logarithm of 3 to the 2. I think if you took a poll of scientists and engineers, some fraction might say, it's 2. Some might take the log base 10. Some might take the log base e. Kind of more of a taste than a factual question. And then if we even look at sort of recent benchmarks that are supposed to be like, good measures of AI progress. Here's another example of something from, quote, Humanities Last Exam in the chemistry category. And again, this question is much more difficult. And I think people agree that it has more signal than something like MMLU, but it's still ultimately a textbook question. If you were to actually go ahead and perform this chemical reaction, you don't know a priori what the outcome would be. You'd have to go into the lab and measure it. And I think in a lot of scientific domains we're more limited by empirical data than from some sort of threshold on reasoning or language model performance. So we put together a benchmark of a bunch of questions that we think better represent the tasks that a scientist would do. Some of the tasks are on things like working with molecular cloning or DNA sequences. Some of them require you to research facts in literature. So it's not really memorizing if a model has memorized a fact, but if it can go find that fact by using like retrieval augmented generative models or web searches, things like that. And we also took lab notebooks and took real scenarios people faced in lab notebooks and then edited them to be like a realistic benchmark. We also did some multimodal work. I won't touch on that. This benchmark, humans score much better. We had humans take this. We had PhD postdoc biologists go and do these tasks as well. They do much better than frontier models. Interestingly, one area that humans and LLMs are actually close is in table question answer. So actually, these models are pretty good at reading tables in scientific papers. But then we've been seeing these scaling laws. So basically, here's humanity's last exam, which I think is, in some ways the replacement for GPQA, but basically it's a very difficult exam that is a lot of scientific questions. And I'm showing here on the x-axis is models release date, and then the y-axis is performance of those models on this task. And you can see that, in the last, 2 months or 3 months, we've gone from, maybe 5% accuracy to 25. And I think there's even reports of over 30% accuracy now. So these kind of textbook trivia style questions really just saturate quickly. But if you go and look at like these benchmarks that I'm talking about, like the ones we made called LabBench, on the bottom right, you can see basically different OpenAI models performance on these lab notebook scenarios. And basically they get 40% right with GPT-4o. And after going to O1 Mini and O1 Preview, and then different training procedures, they still get about 39% on these benchmarks. So they're really benchmarks that are not just you need to reason for longer or you need to somehow have more information memorized. You really need some other kind of like process to go ahead and interact with the environment to see what the outcome would be. As extreme example of this, if I ask you, to guess a random number between 1 and 100, no matter how smart or super intelligent you are, you probably won't be any more successful than a very simple model that just randomly picks a number. Cool. Great. So that's sort of the setting, is that there are these kinds of scientific tasks that frontier LLMs don't just get, de novo. So FutureHouse, we've been building these AI systems, which means like infrastructure, measuring human performance, and we've been doing work on basically defining what an agent is, how you train it, how you get learning, and then we basically at this point where we've able to exceed human level performance, and now we want to scale these agents and deploy them, working on accomplishing scientific objectives. So first of all, what is an agent? There's lots of people, trying to define what exactly an agent is. We don't think that an agent can really be defined without the context of some kind of environment. So at FutureHouse, we sort of, in our papers, we distinguish between an agent, which is something which takes in observations, usually as natural language, because we use transformers, and then it emits actions. These actions can be tool calls or themselves language. So basically, these are actions that are in natural language, and the observations are in natural language. An environment is like a classical reinforcement learning environment. It has some tools, it has some reward function, and some termination condition. And so when you put an agent in an environment, then you basically can go through these cycles. And I think a lot of agent work, if you see, more recent papers, people like to put agents in loops, they like to have multiple agents, things like that, but those are really hard to actually do end-to-end training for. So in this kind of formula that we have, it's actually possible to train these things. So we've released a framework, and there's lots of agent frameworks. Ours is, we try to be as simple as possible, is that it's just some decorators you can throw on Python functions, and then it will look at the typing and the variable names and the documentation strings that you have in Python and turn them into an environment which you can then train a language model on. And this code is released, it's called Aviary is the name of the package. So a lot of the work that we did in this project before we could really use NAIRR resources was figuring out how to train these agents. So what we did is we sort of took the existing, compute graph framing that you see in classical deep learning models and tried to expand it out a little bit to work with agents. So now instead of just having things like, matrix multiplication being nodes in the compute graph, we have things like concatenate or look up in a database or sample from a language model. And so this kind of generalization of compute graphs out to something that's captures probabilities and, computer programs or lookups, and you have to define how derivatives propagate through them, that allows us to actually then train these agents. And within this kind of compute graph setting, you can redefine like a React agent or a tool calling agent to be represented like this, or a RAG agent. So going back to those benchmarks introduced at the beginning, CQA and cloning scenarios, these are ones where we just took, here's an LLM just trying to do them, and then we gave it tools in an agent. So we put a normal frontier LLM into this environment and asked it to use the tools to solve the problems, and we see basically it goes up. For some very small models like Haiku, which is a very small model from Anthropic. It doesn't really improve when you do that, but generally for larger models like Sonnet, we're looking at just Anthropic models here mostly, you see an improvement. Okay. Now, the way that these models work through this to get to training is that we put these language models into the environment and we have it run through the environment. And uh, over time, you basically have a bunch of these trajectories, we can call them, which is like a series of actions. So the color here is the action. And then the outcome is like at the end, there's a red or a green square. And that's if it was a successful trajectory. So it does a bunch of these scientific questions like, I want to clone YDC gene from E. coli into plasmid PUC19. I'm going to linearize the plasmid with SMA1, which is an enzyme. Which primer pair can I use to amplify the gene for Gibson assembly into linearized vector? Then it uses a series of tools to answer this question. This provides a series of demonstrations. So we just basically randomly go through these with frontier LLMs or open source LLMs until you get a bunch of trajectories. Then what we can do is train against those trajectories, and we go through a process called expert iteration. So we start with a bunch of random ones, then we take the ones that were correct and train on those, then we do another set of random ones, then train on those that are correct. And you can see here we're plotting GPU hours. Again, this was done on this NVIDIA DGX Cloud thing acquired through the NAIRR pilot. We basically start seeing learning, and we can get above frontier models with an 8B model. So it's a pretty small model, but over time we can improve to be on these frontier models. This is just showing the trajectories. So on the top left, that was our starting point. Those are the kind of trajectories you see. And then the bottom right, you can see where we end up. And so you can see this real fundamental difference, some kind of shift in how it does it. So we're not really just distilling how frontier models work into a smaller model. We're really actually learning a new way to solve these problems. Then if you look at the cost, so like on the x-axis, we have here the cost to solve these scientific problems, and on the y-axis, we have the accuracy. And so on the right-hand side, we're working on the literature research problem, and the left-hand side, we're working on the sequence problem. Basically, literature research one, you can go from a frontier model, which is in brown and orange, and you can basically increase test time inference, so more thinking time, you can get up to higher accuracy. But if you start with these open source models, you can then get to the same or close to the same level of accuracy, but your orders of magnitude lower cost. So you can do many more samples. So like on the right-hand side, we're paying like dollars per question. On the left-hand side, we're paying, a penny to do 32 or 64 or 100 rollouts. At our organization, what we do is once we're done training a model, we put it together in the environment and put the whole thing together and call it a CRO. So we release these kind of agents coupled with environments on things like solving chemistry tasks, designing engineering proteins, doing literature research. Well, I have this slide here. So these are the ones that we've sort of released. Some of the key tools in these things are they can run molecular dynamics calculations, they can use self-driving robotic labs, they can do use AlphaFold or traverse the citation graph of literature. I'm going to just show you guys a quick demonstration of one of these things. So this is a protein design agent being asked to design a binder. So it's like trying to target a specific receptor, basically PDL1. So this is like the goal of this is to stop in the sort of dampening of the immune system that you see in cancer, which allows your immune system to wake up and continue fighting cancers. So this is an agent basically calling different tools to design proteins, and then over time it's accumulating a set of protein designs that it likes to solve the task. Just go to the next slide here. So like I said, we did some validation on this, and so we actually measured in the wet lab and found that the binder designed by the AI agent was actually a valid one. So I just want to be respectful of the time for the other committee members, so I'm just going to kind of skip through this other stuff. We also do this for literature research.
We have time, Andrew. It's fine. We have 15 minutes. Yeah, you have time.
Oh, I thought there were 3 panelists. Oh, they're just 2.
The Shelley was the third one.
Oh, I'm sorry. I am the last panelist. All right, I thought Shelley was just the intro talk. I'm sorry. So then, yes, I can spend more time on this. My apologies. So then the other thing we worked on was really trying to dig into one of these crows. So I described to you like the protein crow, which is basically able to do the protein design tasks, and then ChemCrow, which is one in chemistry. But this one is for specifically working with scientific literature. So this one basically has a few different tools that we think represent how a human researcher would go through the scientific literature. So it can use paper search, which is like a Google Scholar query. It can do gather evidence, which is where like it looks at individual pages and papers and tries to pull out evidence to help it answer a question. And so, sorry, I like was rushing through this. The point of this agent, this WikiCrow agent, is that you would say, or we call it Paper QA agent too. Sorry, you basically say to it like, has anybody ever done like a pull down for screening for ligands for radiotherapy? Or you say to it like, has anybody ever shown in a randomized controlled trial that there are naturally occurring compounds that can increase neuroplasticity in the brain? Or has anybody ever done molecular dynamics of this protein system? So those are the kind of questions you can ask it. And then we'll go through and use tools like a paper search tool, a gather evidence tool. It also can traverse citations, so it can look at the papers it already knows are relevant for answering the question. It can see who cited that paper or what paper was cited by that paper, and basically add or subtract from its list of papers it thinks are relevant. And then when it's done, it can basically generate an answer of like, okay, do I have enough evidence to answer this question? Here's what my answer would be, and then it can choose to accept or reject the answer. So I have a demo of this working here. So I asked a question. I can't read it because Zoom panel's in there. Oh, has anyone used LM agents to discover novel molecular chromophore? So the top left-hand side, we're seeing the action being taken by this agent. So it's finding papers. So in the center of the screen, you're seeing it look for papers one by one. Now it's doing the gather evidence. So basically, it's reading through individual pages in these papers and then making notes to itself about what information it thinks is relevant. So it scores the information, and then it keeps some fraction of that. And then what it's doing is then calling the answer tool, where it basically is chosen, okay, I have enough information, I'll answer the question. So it gives the answer. What's nice about this kind of setup is you can sort of have provenance. So like I know which page in this paper it was mentioned that this is possible. And then we have the citations here. And one of the things we pay attention to is make sure that the citations included in our agent are of good quality. So we track the number of citations this had. Is it from a peer-reviewed journal or a non-peer-reviewed journal? So here's another article. This one's from an unreviewed preprint, but we can see that this preprint has a large number of citations. And so maybe it's reasonable to take this unreviewed preprint at its word. So this is open source. You can go into GitHub. All of the tools and the environment are there. You can train your own LLMs to use it, or you can use your own LLMs for it. And then we started this project in basically January 2024, and we built a benchmark of like very challenging questions that required you to go read through research papers to answer them. And we got it maybe like 35, 37% on this benchmark in January 2024. And then in September 2024, we were able to match human performance. So human performance is in this orange benchmark. And matching human performance, from January to September involved a lot of things like, make sure we have access to the papers, having this information about filtering the sources based on if it's preprint or not, or the citation amount, being able to better navigate the citation graph. And then we started our NAIRR pilot in August. Actually, sorry, I think we were awarded it in August, but we started it in maybe October. And then within our pilot, we were able to train these agents to go from September 2024, this 67%, to January 2025. We were able to get to 90% accuracy. So we went from being, close to human level performance, or maybe a little bit above it in certain tasks. In this task, we were matching human performance, and then now we're 20 points above human performance. And the human performance here is like we gave PhD students, we paid them per correct answer to go through these questions. So it was like a real benchmark. And they were domain experts, right? It wasn't just like people on Mechanical Turk or something. So how do you evaluate these things, right? So I'm going to talk a little bit about evaluation for this. So it's actually not that easy. We have this benchmark, like I said, but we get into this trap where like you have these benchmarks, but that's not how people use these models. They don't use the models by giving it a multiple choice question. So we did is we had our agent write Wikipedia articles. So it went through and it wrote Wikipedia articles for every gene in the human genome. So there's about 1,700 Wikipedia articles about the human genome. And then there's another, 19,000 or 18,000 Wikipedia articles that have not yet been written. Just people haven't gotten around to do it. So we had our agent rewrite all these Wikipedia articles. Then we took examples where there was an existing Wikipedia article and then our AI generated Wikipedia article, and we took out statements from them and had independent experts evaluate which statement they thought was better. And basically, we're checking to see now. One of the things is like we're not looking at diction. We're not looking at like, is the article interesting? We're looking at does it correctly capture the state of knowledge of the scientific field? And our model did better than human written Wikipedia articles in this blinded setting. And to some extent, that's because our model can consider more sources. Another thing is that it can be like also that our model has access to more up-to-date information. But really, when it comes down to it, when you look at like why humans fail versus models, our agent hallucinates less than humans do. That is, people will read a research paper and go include it on the Wikipedia article and mischaracterize that paper more often than the agent does. And then one of the cool things you can do with an agent like this is that you can just use it for tasks that are just like impossible for humans. So one of the tasks we use it for is you put in a claim, like, I don't know, magnets can reduce inflammation in the knee post-surgery. And then it will go through and find if there's any paper that's ever contradicted that statement. So this is kind of an interesting thing where you can basically put in a bunch of claims from arbitrary papers and find out if there's any disagreement literature. And so if you take this and run it through a bunch of papers out there in journals, we took like, I think 150 random papers from Cell Nature Science. The number of claims in there that are dissented in the literature is about 2.3 claims per paper. And just to be clear, like we're taking the broad claims of the paper. So an average paper has like maybe 10 to 30 or 40 claims in it. And so, some fraction of those is strongly contradicted by previous literature. Of course, it could be that, there's a mistake in the paper or it's like they're wrong, but it also might just be that it's a new finding, which then overturns some previous statement. So it's not like the paper's, right or wrong. It could be a lot of reasons why there's contradictions. Okay, so I'll just show you, like I said, this is one of our agents. There's the other agents that I mentioned, like Protein Crow and ChemCrow. One of the things you can do with this is to, generate hypotheses. So here is a question: is there genetic evidence support for TREM2 association with tau-mediated neurodegeneration? So this is like a question about the cause of Alzheimer's disease. Then it says speculate into plausible mechanisms. And then what it's doing is like generating a hypothesis, but it has the context of not just like literature, but actually it has the context of oh, this one doesn't have it. We have now, this one has the context of clinical trials and human genetic data. So basically, consider a lot of different pieces of evidence for proposing novel hypotheses. And so we have these things basically running right now, like every day, we're running these things at scale to generate new hypotheses for impacting or intervening in human diseases. Cool. Okay. One of the ways that we've tried to deliver this out, like to do open science, like I said, is we open source the code for the algorithm. We open source, the evals, so you can run your own set on it. We also have this website called hasanyone.com, and basically you can come here and you can put in like, has anybody done X? And it will use our model, this agent, to look through research papers, clinical trials, preprints, things like that, and see if anybody's done it. So here's an example. Let's see, is anybody investigating if there are benefits or risks related to Alzheimer's disease in patients who take statins? So then click through this and it basically will go through and then say, yes, to the answer to the question. It has, a justification for this, including like which pages on the papers, and you can see which references are considered. You can see this was a cached question, like it already been answered before, but this question took 170 seconds. So if you were to repeat it on your own, question would take, a couple minutes. It cost 36 cents, and it took, 90,000 tokens to come to the answer. And it considered 23 research papers to get to this answer, but it only ended up needing to cite 6 of them. Cool. Well, sorry about the uneven pacing. But yeah, that's the work I wanted to share from the NAIRR pilot. So, the main ones that we did were scaling these scientific agents in both a test and train time, and then also we sort of tried to apply these agents at scale. We have a lot of other exciting projects that are coming out soon. We want to work with people on this stuff. One of the things we do is we do collaborations where we give API access to our agent. So if you're trying to build your own AI systems and you want to ask a question of literature, or you want to ask a question of like novelty or something, you can query our agent that will then go through and do a literature search, then come back to you with a response. Awesome. So FutureHouse, like I said, it's a nonprofit. There's a lot of people there. I'm head of science and co-founder. Sam Rodriguez is the CEO of FutureHouse. Sam Cox led the original ChemCrow project, which is a couple years old now, and has helped us out on a lot of the agents' work. And then Mike Skurlinski, he's been leading this WikiCrow Paper QA project. And then Siddharth did the aviary project, which is on training these agents. Awesome. So I think I will then spend some time looking at questions in the chat. Thank you all for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. White. I think we have only one question for you. While you answer the question,
yeah, I can answer that, right?
Yeah,
So it says,
okay.
how does paper QA ensure factual consistency across different sources? Yeah, I mean, to some extent, systems like this rely on language models. So basically, if you have like multiple sources in the context window saying different things, then it's up to the LLM to like try to synthesize those contradicting claims. We haven't done a lot of benchmarking on this, but just, based on my own experience, if there are two papers saying different things, then an LLM will basically hedge and report both of them. Of course, if you don't have access to the source, like if there's one source and then another source contradicts it, then you don't have both of those available, then of course, it's impossible to tell. But I think one of the themes of the work we're doing is trying to separate out like the ability for these models to memorize things versus their ability to use tools. So I think right now it's like you need to have a really big model for it to actually do some of these tasks, like answer questions about science. But what we either actually have is like a smaller model that's just really good at using Google Scholar search, really good at like reading through papers and really good at like looking at citations. And then every time it needs to have something rather than relying on a memorization, oh, I gave a thumbs up. Rather than relying on a memorization, it can just like look at the stuff in the scientific literature. That's really good for making sure it's up to date, making sure there's provenance so we know why it came to the conclusion it did. Yeah. Thanks for the question.
Thank you, Dr. White. I think we have only 2 more minutes. I have one last question to be answered. I've launched the last poll. So this question is, which of the following is the most important aspect when it comes to choosing resource providers? It's GPU, CPUs, cloud resources, general service delivery, operational efficiency, technologies, collaboration, communication. That's the last one. I'm gonna close in like 10 seconds. It's coming. Closing, almost there. Okay. It's still popping. Okay. All right, with that, I think we have the results, and 43% of the population says GPU, CPUs, cloud resources are offered. So thank you so much for your input. We will take on these considerations while we look for our next venture, which is going to be the workshop starting June. We would like to thank again panelists and the participants for joining us and giving us such a good feedback and for such knowledge. Thank you again, Dr. Xiao and Dr. White, and Shelley is already left, and Alana, our co-host, and all the speakers and the participants. Thank you, and have a good day. Enjoy.